The Money in the Bank is one of the most exciting matches in the WWE. Every year, almost a dozen superstars enter the chaotic ladder match to hopefully climb their way to glory and grab that coveted briefcase hanging above the ring. While some winners go on to become main event legends and Hall of Famers, others end up totally squandering their golden ticket to championship glory. From Edge's legendary cash-in that started it all, to Austin Theory's epic fumble, the briefcase has created some of wrestling's greatest success stories and biggest disappointments. So what happened to every Money in the Bank ladder match winner? Let's climb the ladder of history and find out together. The Money in the Bank concept was designed by Chris Jericho, and from 2005 to 2010, it was a WrestleMania staple. The formula was simple: climb the ladder, grab the briefcase, and earn your opportunity to challenge for the world title anywhere, anytime. The first ever Money in the Bank ladder match took place at WrestleMania 21, and it was won by none other than the rated R superstar, Edge. But Edge didn't just win the briefcase, he wrote the playbook for how to use it. After holding the briefcase for 280 days, he cashed in on a bloodied John Cena at New Year's Revolution 2006, becoming the WWE Champion in one of the most shocking moments in wrestling history. But this was just the beginning of Edge's ascension. He went on to become an 11-time world champion, headlined multiple WrestleManias, won Money in the Bank again in 2007, and became known as the Ultimate Opportunist. The briefcase didn't just change Edge's career, it launched a legendary Hall of Fame trajectory that continues today. RVD's Money in the Bank win in 2006 represented everything the briefcase could offer, and everything that could go wrong. Van Dam held his contract for 63 days before making the genius decision to cash in at ECW One Night Stand 2006, using his home field advantage to defeat John Cena for the WWE Championship. The crowd went absolutely nuclear, and it seemed like RVD was finally getting his main event moment after years of being overlooked. However, just 22 days later, disaster struck. Van Dam was arrested for drug possession along with Sabu, leading to his suspension and the loss of both the WWE Championship and the newly revived ECW Championship. This incident effectively ended RVD's main event push forever. While he returned to WWE multiple times over the years, he never again reached the heights that the Money in the Bank briefcase had briefly given him. But perhaps the most tragic story in the briefcase's history is that of Mr. Kennedy. After winning the briefcase at WrestleMania 23, Kennedy was positioned as a future main eventer and was reportedly planned to cash in on The Undertaker for the World Heavyweight Championship. However, an injury report forced him to lose the briefcase to Edge in a match without ever cashing in. But the cruel irony was that Kennedy later discovered his injury was far less severe than originally diagnosed, but by then, Edge had already cashed in the briefcase and become the world champion. This misdiagnosis derailed Kennedy's entire career momentum. He was released by WWE in 2009 after several more injury concerns and backstage issues. Kennedy, now going by his real name Ken Anderson, found success in TNA wrestling, but never reached the main event level that Money in the Bank was supposed to guarantee him. But someone who did use the Money in the Bank briefcase to reach the main event level was none other than CM Punk. Punk became the first two-time Money in the Bank winner, but his briefcase reigns tell two very different stories. His first win led to a quick cash-in on Edge for the World Heavyweight Championship, but Punk's 64-day reign was underwhelming and ended in disappointing fashion when he lost the title without even defending it in a match. However, his second briefcase led to much more success. After cashing in on Jeff Hardy in 2009, Punk turned heel and began the character transformation that would eventually make him one of WWE's biggest stars. While these early championship reigns were still relatively brief, they set the stage for Punk's legendary 434-day WWE Championship reign from 2011 to 2013. Today, Punk remains one of wrestling's most compelling figures, and his Money in the Bank wins were just the beginning of a Hall of Fame career. However, the same can't be said for Jack Swagger. After winning the briefcase, he cashed in just 3 days later on Chris Jericho to become World Heavyweight Champion. However, his 83-day reign exposed him as unprepared for the main event level. Swagger's title run was widely considered one of the most boring in the belt's history, and when he lost the title 3 months later, the audience was genuinely relieved to have a different champion. Swagger never recovered from this failed push. Despite later attempts with different gimmicks, including the We the People character that got moderately over, he never held World Championship gold again, and was released by WWE in 2017. The 2006 to 2010 era of Money in the Bank established the golden template. The briefcase could create legends like Edge and CM Punk, or it could expose those who weren't ready for the spotlight, like Swagger and Kennedy. Swagger's run with the briefcase was so disappointing that in order to make up for it, WWE made the decision to give Money in the Bank its own pay-per-view, featuring separate briefcases for Raw and SmackDown. This era would produce some of the most memorable cash-ins and biggest disappointments in the briefcase's history. The Miz's Money in the Bank win in 2010 proved that the briefcase could elevate anyone to the top of the card. After holding the contract for 133 days, he cashed in on Randy Orton to become WWE Champion, and his reign was anything but boring. The Miz cranked his obnoxious heel character up to 11, becoming the most hated wrestler on Raw with help from Michael Cole's commentary and his bodyguard, Alex Riley. His championship run culminated in main-eventing WrestleMania 27 against John Cena, where he retained the title thanks to The Rock's interference. However, after losing the belt to Cena 2 months later, The Miz was gradually moved down the card. Today, while The Miz remains a reliable WWE performer who's held multiple mid-card titles and had success in Hollywood, he's never again reached the main event level that Money in the Bank briefly gave him. But someone who made history by becoming the first wrestler to cash in his briefcase the same night he won it was none other than the Big Red Machine, Kane. Kane won the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match and cashed in on Rey Mysterio for the World Heavyweight Championship just hours later. Kane's 154-day reign featured memorable feuds with Rey Mysterio and his brother The Undertaker, including a buried alive match victory over the Dead Man. After losing the title to Edge at TLC 2010, Kane continued his legendary career for over a decade more, but this would be his final World Championship run. While the briefcase gave some superstars like Kane their final run in the main event, it also served as a golden ticket that gave many other stars their first taste of the main event scene. One such star was none other than Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan's 2011 win started one of wrestling's greatest underdog stories. After holding the briefcase for 131 days, Bryan cashed in on Mark Henry to become World Heavyweight Champion. His reign saw the beginnings of his relationship with AJ Lee and his transformation into an arrogant heel character. However, the infamous 18-second loss to Sheamus at WrestleMania 28 could have ended his career. Instead, it sparked the Yes movement as fans rallied behind Bryan. This momentum eventually led to his legendary WrestleMania 30 win, where he defeated Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista in one night to become WWE World Heavyweight Champion. However, the Raw briefcase winner from 2011 wasn't so lucky. Alberto Del Rio had the misfortune of being Mr. Money in the Bank during CM Punk's legendary Summer of Punk storyline, making him a complete afterthought. After 35 days, he cashed in at SummerSlam 2011 following Kevin Nash's attack on Punk. However, Del Rio's 28-day reign was overshadowed by the ongoing Punk drama, and he quickly lost the title back to John Cena. Del Rio would later win the World Heavyweight Championship twice more, but his WWE career became increasingly problematic due to backstage issues and controversial statements. He was fired in 2014, briefly returned in 2015 to 2016 for another disappointing run, and was released again. Since then, Del Rio's career has been marred by legal troubles, allegations, and controversies. Till 2011, the briefcase had a perfect record. Everyone who cashed in walked out with gold. But in 2012, a shocking twist was about to change the legacy of Money in the Bank forever when beloved babyface John Cena became the first person to fail in their Money in the Bank cash-in attempt. After winning the briefcase in a star-studded match, Cena announced his cash-in for the 1,000th episode of Raw against CM Punk. Despite the massive stage and Cena's usual plot armor, Big Show's interference cost him the match, making him the first briefcase holder to lose their guaranteed championship match. However, being John Cena, this failure barely affected his career trajectory as he continued being WWE's top star for another decade, eventually going on to make history by becoming the first ever 17-time world champion in WWE. But 2012 also gave us one of the most memorable cash-ins in history. Dolph Ziggler's cash-in on Alberto Del Rio the night after WrestleMania 29 created one of the loudest crowd reactions ever. Unfortunately, a concussion just weeks into his reign cut his championship run short at only 69 days. While Ziggler would later go on to capture the Intercontinental Championship multiple times and have memorable moments in the WWE, he never again reached the World Championship level. The briefcase cash-in remains the absolute peak of Ziggler's career, representing both his greatest triumph and the ceiling of his main event potential. Speaking of wasted potential, Damien Sandow's briefcase story is a heartbreaking tale of wasted potential. After 78 days with the briefcase, his cash-in against John Cena became the second failed cash-in attempt in history, and perhaps the most deflating. Despite Cena wrestling with a legit arm injury, he defeated Sandow with essentially one arm. WWE seemed to give up on Sandow immediately after this failure, cycling him through various comedy gimmicks, including the Damien Mizdow character, until finally releasing him in 2016 as his career never fully recovered from that devastating loss to Cena. Adding to his impressive list of accomplishments, Randy Orton won the Raw Money in the Bank ladder match in 2013. Orton's briefcase win set up one of WWE's most important storylines when he cashed in on Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam 2013, launching the Authority storyline that would dominate WWE for years. Orton's reign as the Authority's chosen champion led to the unification of the WWE and World Heavyweight Championships, making him the one true face of the WWE. While Orton eventually lost the unified titles to Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30, this briefcase win cemented his position as one of WWE's top heels and main event players for the next decade. After the brand split ended, WWE returned to a single Money in the Bank briefcase, leading to perhaps the most iconic moment in the briefcase's history. At WrestleMania 31, Rollins shocked the world by cashing in during the main event and winning the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. This heist of the century launched Rollins into superstardom as he became the face of WWE. Despite his reign being cut short by injury, Rollins used this briefcase win as the foundation for becoming one of WWE's top stars for the next decade. However, Sheamus's run with the briefcase in 2015 wasn't so iconic. The Celtic Warrior cashed in at Survivor Series on Roman Reigns, immediately after Reigns won a tournament to become WWE champion. Sheamus's 22-day reign was largely forgettable, serving as a brief interruption before WWE put the belt back on Reigns. While Sheamus has remained a reliable upper mid-card performer and tag team champion since then, this briefcase win represented more of a placeholder reign than a career-defining moment. But the following year in 2016, the briefcase would once again play a major role in creating one of the most memorable moments in WWE history. Dean Ambrose's win in 2016 created one of modern wrestling's most iconic moments when he cashed in the same night after his Shield brother Seth Rollins defeated Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship. This made all three former Shield members WWE champions, with Ambrose's 84-day reign serving as a solid foundation for the newly revived brand split. While his title run was shorter than his Shield brothers, Ambrose used this momentum to become a cornerstone of SmackDown's early success before leaving WWE in 2019 and finding a new home in AEW as Jon Moxley. 2017 marked another historic milestone with the introduction of the first-ever Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. The inaugural women's ladder match was initially won by James Ellsworth in a controversial finish, but Carmella was declared the official winner after a rematch the following week. She held her briefcase for a record-breaking 287 days before finally cashing in on Charlotte Flair in April. Carmella's 130-day reign as SmackDown Women's Champion proved she could handle the spotlight, defeating notable opponents like Charlotte and Asuka. However, for Baron Corbin, the story was quite contrasting. Corbin held his briefcase for 68 days before becoming the third superstar to fail their cash-in attempt. On August 15, 2017, he attacked John Cena during Cena's match with WWE champion Jinder Mahal, then cashed in on the fallen champion. However, Cena's interference at ringside cost Corbin the match, making him join the unfortunate club of failed cash-ins. This failure effectively ended Corbin's main event aspirations and led to one of the most deflating moments in briefcase history. But just when you thought Vince couldn't fumble the ball any worse, another missed opportunity came the following year in 2018. Braun Strowman was arguably the most over superstar in WWE when he won the briefcase in 2018. However, his cash-in against Roman Reigns ended in bizarre fashion when Brock Lesnar interfered and the match was stopped due to excessive violence. This non-finish derailed Strowman's incredible momentum, and he never quite recovered that same level of popularity. But someone who did take complete advantage of the briefcase was Strowman's former mixed tag team partner, Alexa Bliss. Bliss started the trend of women cashing in immediately and winning the title the same night she won the briefcase. This quick cash-in led to another successful title reign that cemented Bliss as a top female star for years to come. The 2019 to 2022 pandemic era brought unprecedented chaos to the concept and changed the match forever. In one of the most shocking moments in the briefcase history, Brock Lesnar wasn't even announced for the match, but showed up and won anyway. He held the briefcase for just 55 days before cashing in on Seth Rollins at Extreme Rules. But this reign felt entirely pointless as he lost the Universal Championship back to Rollins at SummerSlam. The whole situation seemed designed more for shock value than storytelling, making it one of the most unnecessary briefcase wins ever. On the other side, Bayley won the briefcase and cashed in her briefcase the same night on Charlotte Flair, becoming the first women's Grand Slam champion. Her 119-day reign was transformative as she turned heel for the first time in her WWE career and completely reinvented her character as the role model. 2020 saw the most unique match in the briefcase's long history as dozens of wrestlers raced to the top of WWE headquarters. The pandemic-era Titan Towers match was won by Otis in one of the biggest surprises in the briefcase's history. However, the heavy machinery operator was clearly not main event material. After 118 days, he lost his contract to The Miz in a match, becoming only the second person to lose the briefcase without cashing in. The Miz successfully cashed in on Drew McIntyre but lost the title just 8 days later to Bobby Lashley, making this one of the most convoluted briefcase storylines ever. On the women's side, Asuka would win the briefcase and the gold without having to cash in as Becky Lynch had to leave due to pregnancy. The following year, Nikki Cross continued the tradition of quick cash-ins on the women's side, holding the contract for just one night before cashing it in. Big E, on the other hand, held the contract for almost 2 months before cashing in and finally getting a much-deserved main event push. Big E's title reign, however, was forgettable, and he was once again pushed down the card after the Day 1 shenanigans. 2022 was another weird year for the briefcase when Austin Theory cashed in his title shot on not the world champion, but instead on the United States champion. And the worst part? He lost. An absolute waste of the briefcase. On the women's side, Liv Morgan continued the tradition of quick cash-ins and had a decent run at the top before going on to feud with Rhea Ripley in 2024 and becoming Dirty Dom's new mommy. Io Sky held her briefcase for 35 days before executing a perfect cash-in at SummerSlam 2023. This strategic timing gave Sky her first main roster championship and established her as a legit main event player. Her 279-day reign as WWE Women's Champion was highly successful and served as a launching pad for long-term main event success rather than a one-time moment. Damian Priest's journey with the briefcase was one of patience and perfect timing. After holding the contract for a record-breaking 281 days, he cashed in at WrestleMania 40 on Drew McIntyre immediately after McIntyre defeated Seth Rollins. The briefcase would continue its tragic tale with Drew the following year. After winning the ladder match in 2024, Drew immediately cashed in during the Damian Priest vs. Seth Rollins World Heavyweight Championship match. However, his longtime nemesis, CM Punk, interfered and brutally attacked McIntyre, costing him the match and making him the 6th superstar to fail their cash-in. On the women's side, Tiffany Stratton successfully cashed in her briefcase to become WWE Women's Champion and reach the tippy top of the SmackDown's women division. From Edge's career-defining first cash-in to Tiffany Stratton's recent championship victory, the Money in the Bank briefcase has created legends, launched careers, and broken dreams for nearly 2 decades. But let me know who you think will win the briefcase this year. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.